Okay, hello, my name is Angelo from Silver & Young Chartered Accountants, and we work with lots of small and medium-sized businesses. And today we want to talk about the critical item that's on everyone's agenda today, which is this coronavirus. It's never happened before in our lifetime. We hope that it never happens again in our lifetime, and we are only at the beginning of the pain. So it shouldn't all be doom and gloom, but a smart business person looks ahead and doesn't react, but becomes more proactive. There's been a lot of media attention on this. There has been a lot of doom and gloom, and if you watch the news just once, you become depressed. But we need to understand beyond that, and we need to understand what is the government really providing in terms of stimulus packages for our businesses. Because at the end of the day, small businesses employ so many Australians that it's in the government's best interest to keep all of us afloat, all of us operating, and all of us able to reopen our doors at full capacity once this crisis is over. And it won't be over for a while, unfortunately. So today I want to run through some of the major points in the stimulus package. Remember, this is the second stimulus package. We're expecting there should be more coming in the months ahead, but for now, this is what we know. First of all, we're talking about apprentices. So if you have apprentices on your books, and you've had apprentices since 1st of January, the government is willing to provide you with a stimulus to keep them employed. They're talking about around $7,000 per quarter for the March quarter, so that's January to March, June quarter and September quarter, encouraging people to continue to employ apprentices. The way you achieve that benefit is by applying to your Australian apprenticeship provider, and they should have all the information you need to get that result. The second item we have is the write-off of assets. So normally when you buy an asset, you have to depreciate it. Then the government some time ago said that if it's less than $30,000, they'll let you write it off in one go, which basically means you don't pay tax on the cost of that asset. If I made $100,000 profit and I paid $30,000 for a new asset, I would only pay tax on the $70,000 profit. I would no longer have to depreciate it. Well, this is the new part that's come with this stimulus package, is that the government said, don't worry about that $30,000, let's boost it up until $150,000. That is supposed to expire at the end of June. So the purpose of that is to encourage people to keep spending money, keep buying equipment, keep buying vehicles, keep buying trucks. Remember though, that if you're buying a car and not a commercial vehicle, there are other limits that apply. So you really need to speak to your accountant before you spend any real dollars. The next part is loans. So the government is encouraging lenders to lend money to small businesses. One of the things they're suggesting is that they cut through the red tape. They're saying, look, we've introduced all these rules to make lending more responsible. We're looking at relaxing those rules a little bit to get money where it's needed most very fast. Cut through the red tape. They've gone beyond that. They've said some of the banks are worried about lending money to small businesses because small businesses are expected to have quite a lot of pain moving forward. So the government is backing those loans. They're saying we'll guarantee up to half of that loan, up to $250,000. So that is an opportunity if your business needs some cash flow. How do we get that? We go to our banks. Contact your relationship manager, contact your bank manager. The other thing that the government is encouraging, and the banks are coming on board, is deferral of payments. So a lot of the banks will now allow you to contact them, fill in the appropriate forms, and ask them to be deferred from making regular repayments on loans. There's no point squeezing everyone at a difficult time. Let's let small business have more cash available. So if you expect that cash flow is going to be difficult for you, you should be contacting your bank to see if you can defer those repayments. Early super release. So this one is one that was unexpected. It looks like Parliament's passed this, and what it's basically doing is it's saying, hey, if you need some money and you have money in super, apply it to your super fund. They expect this will be done through MyGov to get some money released from super. Remember, you're releasing your super money. This isn't a government payment. This is your money released to you before retirement. Up to $10,000 by the end of June, and up to another $10,000 after June from July, which potentially would allow you to release $20,000 per person. This again, the purpose of this is maybe we can get some money that we're saving away for a rainy day to use on this rainy day. I only suggest that you take this measure very carefully. The big ticket item that we're seeing is this boost to cash flow for businesses. So I'll put it simply. This is the one that they're offering your pay-as-you-go withholding to you in the form of a rebate once you lodge your March BAS. So for monthly payers, so if you're lodging your PAYG tax withheld your BASs or your IASs on a monthly basis, they will let you off the hook on the amount of tax withheld that you're supposed to pay in that period. If you're on a quarterly basis, you lodge March. If you lodge and there's an amount for GST and an amount for pay-as-you-go tax withheld, they will rebate to you the amount for tax withheld. To put simply, the government is saying, guys, if you keep paying your employees their net wages, we'll cover the tax that's on wages for you. Remember, they're covering your tax. They're not covering their super. Super is still a liability you need to pay. So the amount that a small business could expect to get is a minimum of $10,000 if they're employing staff, and a minimum of $10,000 now with another $10,000 later in the year, making it a minimum of $20,000 for any small business employing staff, up to a maximum of $100,000. You really need to speak to your accountant about this to make sure that you are registered correctly, to make sure that you are applying correctly. But in a normal situation, the application should be really simple. You lodge your BAS and the tax office will manage that rebate process. That should be a huge stimulus for all small businesses that are employing. The other really important thing to remember is that the ATO have expressed that they aren't taking a blanket approach to tax debt. So they're not saying, hey, if you're a small business with tax debt, don't worry about it, we'll let you off the hook. They are saying, we understand that small businesses may be suffering. Please contact us on an individual basis and we will make assessments on that. They've outlined that for any penalties and interest that's been charged after the 23rd of January, there will be leniency, and they encourage everyone, if you're in a payment plan and you cannot meet it, you need to call them before the payment is due. Defaulting on the payment and then calling makes you look like you've defaulted without informing anyone. So please take this step. If cash flow is tight, call the tax office, explain your situation, and they are willing to work with you. So in this really difficult time that a lot of businesses will experience cash flow issues, we have to remember that the focus is no longer going to be just on profitability. The focus is going to be on cash flow. Cash is truly king in this period. What do we mean by that? We mean if you're struggling to pay rent, you need to have a conversation with your landlord. That's not a blanket approach. That doesn't mean we should all go away and not pay our landlord's rent. If you are struggling, you need to speak to your landlord. No benefit will come to you by not paying rent and the landlord is forced to sell a property. The next thing you need to look at is your suppliers. Ring your suppliers. Ask them for favourable payment terms. Ring your accounts receivable, your debtors. Ask them for how they're going. How is their cash flow looking? Because you need to project. Have you sat down with someone either in your office or with your accountant and completed a cash flow projection? Do you understand what is coming for you in the next 3 weeks, in the next 6 weeks, in the next 6 months? What's your minimum break-even point under the current scenario? Do you have idle staff? Do they have leave you can relieve them of? Can you set them aside, let them have some time off with their families, let them feel safe in their own home and use up their leaves, which will reduce the burden on your payroll later down the track. The focus here is keeping as much cash available so that we can keep these doors open, because once the economy rebounds, we need to be ready to storm out to recover what we've lost in this time. The other thing to consider with cash flow is if you can't pay, call your bank, speak to them. If you can't pay the tax office, call them and speak to them. There are special rules around what you can and can't do in terms of staff. Speak to your HR people. Are you allowed to let your staff sit at home and not work and not get paid? Are you breaching any legislation? The general guideline that's out there, and I'm not an HR expert, as a result of something, if you don't have work as a result of something that is beyond your control, such as you're a restaurant owner and you've been shut down as of Monday, then you cannot possibly have control over that, which means you are permitted to allow your staff to go home. Now, I won't go into detail on this next part, but it's important for you as business owners to understand what is out there for the staff that you may have to let go. And that is, the government have announced a huge package to help and support job seekers, to help support people looking for work, and to help support people that are not working because of this coronavirus. They need to contact Centrelink. None of that is done through your accountant, none of that is done through the tax office, that is done through Centrelink. What is the summary? What do we need to do as business owners? So remember, 1, if you have apprentices, you need to contact the apprenticeship provider that you use. 2, you need to contact your accountant to get advice on how you can claim the rebate for the pay-as-you-go withholding and how you can forecast your cash flow to make sure you're not going to be in trouble. Speak to your HR people about what you need to do with staff. Speak to your landlord if you're experiencing a rental crisis. Speak to your bank to try and get some repayment deferrals. Speak to the tax office to try and defer your payment plan. Never leave things until they're overdue. Be proactive. Don't sit back and hope for the best. In these difficult and challenging times, it's the best business operators that come out on top. And it's also sometimes the luck of the draw. Some industries are being hit unfairly more than others. All we can do is go into survival mode, which is why I also encourage you to look at your personal financial situation. These are opportunities to reduce spending. These are opportunities to also speak to your home loan provider to ask them for relief. These are the times that you should look at, do I have a power of attorney? If I am in isolation, is there someone else that can act on my behalf if action needs to be taken? So go away, speak to your advisors, because now is the time to prepare. So guys, go out there, speak to the experts, and best of luck in the times ahead.